everyone, and welcome to Media One's live coverage of Winchester's 1999 elections. I'm Jennifer Babine. The polls have just closed at 8 o'clock, and we will be closely following the races tonight. We will have the results just as soon as they are tabulated, so stay with us because you cannot get the results any faster than right here at Channel 3. Joining me to discuss the numbers as they come in and the issues that are making a difference in today's election is former Winchester Selectman and political analyst Alan McDonald. Alan, thanks for joining us
Jennifer,
tonight.
great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Alan and I will be on the air live until all the winners are announced, and CTV3 political reporter Alan Iden is standing by at Winchester Town Hall. We'll check in with him throughout the evening to see what's going on at Town Hall and to speak with some of the folks that are milling around. Alan, let me just start by asking you a simple question. I understand Winchester's ballot system is electronic, and we should be getting the numbers early in tonight's race.
It's a new twist for us.
When do you think we'll start to have some results?
Well, if we get lucky, we should before 8:30 have numbers for everybody. That was the idea when we went to the new machines, and the new machines were a matter of avoiding having to take care of those old electronic voting machines that needed to be stored and maintained all the time, and these machines that we have now are very simple, and so it's a much easier process and for counting the votes.
And I know that you've been covering elections for years and years, and I'm sure you remember, as do our viewers, I'm sure, the nights of 11, perhaps midnight, waiting for all those numbers to come in.
I even remember as many with the paper ballots. I mean, you had to go in and check them off. And everybody voted in Town Hall, actually, once upon a time, but that got to be too difficult. It wasn't big enough, and we had to spread out the precincts and go to the machines. So.
Well, hopefully we'll have those numbers tonight, but let me just reiterate the point that you cannot get the numbers any faster than staying with us right here on Channel 3. So for the next hour or so, however long it takes to get all those numbers in and announce our winners, we will be on the air bringing you the numbers just as quickly as we can. We do have Alan Iden standing by at Town Hall, so why don't we check in with him and see how things are starting to shape up at this early hour.
Great.
Alan, good evening.
Things are pretty quiet at the moment. Interesting point, though, we were just talking about the vote collection process, and we've taken actually a step, well, maybe a step backwards in terms of technology here. Just speaking to the town clerk, Carolyn Ward, a little while ago, and up until this year, the past couple of years, we've been transmitting the results from the polls by modem, which would be a speedy way to receive them in the electronic age. Well, as our viewers may remember, last year, we had some glitches in that process, and Carolyn has decided this year to go back to the old-fashioned way. The numbers are going to be called in, and they'll be put in a spreadsheet down in the town clerk's office, and those results will be brought up to us just as soon as they're posted. So I guess the information age and technology isn't always the answer, and it isn't always an improved process. Anyway, we're over here at Town Hall waiting for the results to come in just as soon as the polls close. If my personal experience was any indication today, the voter turnout was rather light, so we may have results fairly early. Also over here, and you don't see her on camera at the moment, but she'll be joining me later on, is another veteran Channel TV3 political reporter, Sandy Rogers, and she'll be here just in a little while. So back to you guys in the studio.
Thanks very much. We'll be checking in again with Alan throughout the evening to see how things are shaping up and how the numbers are coming in. And that's interesting what Alan was saying about taking possibly a step back in the in the information age and going back to the old method of the telephone.
I think this is the best laid planned situation. We certainly anticipated when those machines were purchased that we would be getting to the space age and getting fast reports, but they have not worked that quickly the last 2 years, so we're still in the early stages of figuring that one out, I think.
Well, there are 4 voting places. Correct me if I'm wrong. You've got 8 precincts here in Winchester, so the numbers will be tabulated at each of those voting areas and then called into Town Hall, and as soon as they are, we'll have the numbers and we'll cablecast them out to our viewers.
Well, that's great. And the technology is that we would, the machines themselves at the polling places should be collecting the numbers as it happens, so they may need to be called in, but there shouldn't be a matter of counting them one by one, so we should be able to get numbers for them.
And I've had those nights where I've been on the air until 1 o'clock in the morning plus waiting for those numbers to be counted, so I think It'll be nice tonight. We'll have those numbers early, and so people can start their celebrating.
I hope so.
Let me actually put you on the spot a minute
Mm-hmm.
and ask you about your predictions for tonight. We are following closely the selectmen's race, of course, a contested race this evening. Actually, the only contested race of the evening, and I want to get into that in a minute too, but predictions for that race.
Well, we have three candidates who are on the ballot for the first time. They've each run in their own precincts 1, 2, and 3, but none of the three has been town-wide, so we really don't know what the vote-drawing power of any of them would be. Certainly the most visible of the candidates is Betsy Krager, who's been chairman of the Finance Committee and the Capital Planning Committee. But of course, Rob Steves was fairly visible as well during our discussions on the school redo and on the Education Facilities Planning and Building Committee. Rob was very visible in that, as well as his own activity in the Finance Committee. And the third candidate, Glenn Jacobs, has not been as visible. He's been a town meeting member for one term, and that was 95 to 98, didn't run again in 98, and then came on the ballot this year. So I would say that if you looked at the three, that certainly Betsy Krager has the advantage of more visibility as chair of Finance Committee, and actually in town meeting a longer period of time as well. So I would have to say that she has the advantage of taking Rob Steves on in his own home court. Those will be precincts 1 and 2. Rob is from precinct 1 and Betsy from precinct 2. I would say that if Rob can stay with Betsy when she goes out into precincts 3, 4, 7, out into the town, that could make a good run out of it. But that will be what we're going to watch through the numbers.
Okay, well, we'll just have to stay watching these races for a little bit longer and see if what you say actually comes true.
That's good.
Now, there is only one contested race, and reading up on Winchester's politics, I'm not local, as you know, there are a lot of issues here for what I always thought of as a small community. A lot of things are going on. So
Yes.
I didn't quite understand why such a small group of participants running for this particular election. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, we had a record run the last 2 years. We had 6 people run for selectmen in 98 and 6 people in 97. That was the most we had run for the selectman's office in 40 years. We had to go back to the 1950s to find 6 people running for the selectman's post. So I do think that, in a sense, we had a lot of activity in those 2 years. People really did debate the issues, had a good look at it. And a few of the candidates that did not win, I think it might have wanted to run this time, have been busy with other things in the past year, and it might be that they'll come back another time and run. But we did really have a dozen candidates, in a sense, over the last couple of years, and that's a lot of people running for that office.
What about the lack of any competition for the school committee seat that's open? A lot of school issues.
A lot of school issues, and we have cycled on the school committee. We've had a lot of contests over time. Back in the 70s, that was where we actually had 7 candidates run a couple of times for the school committee seats, and during the 70s we had 3 years where we had 6 or more run. And we have again back in the 90s gone through that a little bit, but here you have the chairman of the school committee running. I think that we've had some change in the school committee. We had new people come on in the last 2 elections. We had Sarah Swiger come on, and of course Peter Haley topped the ticket last year. So we have new faces on the school committee as well. And I think there's a balance there that people have accepted for the time being anyway, and there wasn't an interest in challenging the chairman.
So you're sort of the thought that people are happy, and if they're happy, they then don't challenge the incumbent.
Well, I think they feel represented. I think when they look at the school committee, there is a good cross-section. And you've got people who are in their 5th term, Eddie O'Connell, and Kathleen Bodie, who's a veteran there as well. And then you've got 2 relatively new faces in the school committee, and of course Eli himself as chairman. It's got a pretty good balance, I think, and I would guess that people, if they have something of importance, and everybody does with the school system, feel that they're represented in some way.
Let's break away for a moment and check back in with Alan Iden, who is standing by at Winchester Town Hall. Alan, how are things shaping up?
Well, we're still waiting over here at Town Hall for some of the results to come in. It is only shortly after the polls close, but we expect they'll be coming in pretty quickly. As you said, there is only one contested race, and of course the ballot question. It's probably worth looking at some of the candidates that are in uncontested races. Mark Lombardi, of course, is running for re-election as an assessor. Randall Schwartz looking for re-election to the Board of Health. Harry Scheffel Ruffalo and Stephen Parkhurst, looking for new terms on the planning boards, also for re-election. As you just said, Eli Bortman is looking to come back for another term on the school committee, a 3-year term. And Ellen Browning and A. Deborah Cravell are both looking to come back, and again, as incumbents as library trustee. And of course, I know you haven't mentioned it yet, Alan, but our venerable moderator, John Sullivan, is once again running for another 1-year term as town moderator. I believe is 20th or 21st. Correct me if I'm wrong.
23rd, but who's counting?
Okay, well, I knew it was somewhere up in the stratosphere there.
Venerable, I'm not sure you go for
We'll
that.
bring you the results just as soon as we get them in here. We'll be checking downstairs with the town clerk's office. And again, we expect them to start coming in fairly quickly, assuming that there aren't long lines at the polls. We're waiting for them to close. And I think when we come back on our next segment, we'll talk about the town meeting races, too. So back to you in the studio.
Alan, before you slip away, let me just ask you one question. We can't see any people walking around behind you in that particular spot, but I'm wondering if there are many people down at Town Hall starting to gather to look at the numbers as we are.
Jennifer, that's a good question. We are up in the selectman's office, which is up on the second floor, so we're kind of quiet up here. We don't really want a lot of people tramping in and out. But as soon as we go off the air here, we're going to take a look downstairs and see if there are people gathering in the main lobby where the town clerk's office is.
Terrific, thank you. We'll check back with you shortly.
All right, great.
Thanks a lot. Alan brings up some very good points. He's mentioned all of the names of the people who are running uncontested, and he also brought up the ballot question, which you and I have not yet spoken about.
Right.
And actually, we have the ballot question in graphic form, if we could bring that up and actually take a look at it word for word. The ballot question is actually a very important, if not possibly the most important part of today's election, not to deem one race more important than the other, but it affects every homeowner in Winchester, and it reads, shall the town of Winchester be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bonds to be issued for $13,090,000 for the purpose of the design, reconstruction, remodeling, equipping, addition, and making extraordinary repairs to Lincoln School, Winchester High School, Ambrose School, and Vision Owens School.
Right.
So we've talked about school issues, and this question is very much a part of a school issue. What are your thoughts on the 2.5 override? I know that it has come up time and time again, dare I say, every year here in the town of Winchester. And
88, 89.
what's going on with that?
Well, the Lincoln School, which is the key to this, I mean, most of the question revolves around what we're going to do with Lincoln School. Certainly Ambrose, Vincent Owen, and Winchester High are also part of the fix-up program that we're going to have, but the work that we need to do on Lincoln School, which has been the major part in the last 3 years of discussion about how we're going to do our total school reform package, needs to be addressed. And the question in the voters' minds today is whether it can be addressed with operating revenues and continue to do our regular budget through town meeting and repair the schools and rebuild them as we go, or we really do need to set aside this money, which draws some state money as well. That's the most important part of this as far as affordability goes, and be able to operate our budget over the next 3 or 4 years in a way that will maintain town services similar to what we've had in the past few years. But it really is key, because if this doesn't get overridden, 2.5, then of course we're going to have a very tight time over the next 3 or 4 years.
That was my next question. What'll happen?
Well, and those who vote against the override feel strongly that we can maintain our budget operations the way we'd like to without putting aside this special amount of money just for the school construction all at once. There's no question, though we've seen it in the debate with the 3 candidates for selectmen, that there would be serious changes in the budget process over the next 3 or 4 years if we don't have this override. The votes are in, so we'll find out what they are, but it will have a tremendous impact one way or the other. It's going to have an impact on the property tax situation with the override. It's going to have an impact on the budget if it's not overridden. So it will be something that we'll notice. Those proponents for 2.5, of course, have pointed out that we will get state reimbursement, and if we're going to fix our schools, that this is the most affordable way that we can do it.
I've read a bit in the local press about this condition of the Lincoln School in particular, and some of the other schools as well. And I have a couple of questions regarding that. One, my first question is, why are the schools in as rough condition as I believe they are? And two, why does the override, or why has the override been the only way to repair them? Why, and three, why are there not new schools built?
Well, it's symptomatic statewide, really, in the communities. The schools have been the biggest suffering points, I think, statewide in the communities under 2.5. What happened prior to 2.5 was the capital budget would come into town meeting and be treated as a normal part of the budget and as important as the operations. I think since 2.5, and we're in our 20th budget since 2.5 passed, there has been attention first to pay as you go on the operations, and then what you can afford for capital, go ahead and do it. Very similar to any household budget that's tight. You know you need to spend a certain amount on housing and the capital cost, but if you have to pay for your as-you-go expenses, it's difficult to do that. And it's easier to delay, defer, push out, and that's what's happened, not just in Winchester, but in many, many places. And that's what's caused the state to say, we will reimburse the communities for putting money back into the schools if they'll do it, because we realize that 2.5 has pinched the capital expenditures. And so we really have had, since 1980, a difficult time putting capital to the schools, and it's showing.
How large a senior population do you have here in Winchester?
We have about 20% of the town, which is 60 and over, and that's a 20,000 population town. So about 4,000 of our population would be what we would call seniors, 60 and over.
I know in a lot of communities that try to override Prop 2.5, one of the problems with getting it passed is that the senior population as a whole in general is against it because they don't have children in the school system, they're on a fixed income, a number of reasons. What is it like here in Winchester?
Well, it's split. I would say that certainly it's true statewide that and nationwide that seniors would feel the pinch on the tax situation. But there are a number of seniors who are vocally in favor of having a school system that's strong because it does protect their property values as well. It is a matter of affordability for the citizens, and it's not that all of any one group would be for or against. But certainly I think that seniors find it difficult. That's understandable. But those who are able to see their way to possible override have been favorable. I know that in the postcards that went out, I noticed the name of one prominent, if I could mention Larry Smith, a former selectman, but who would be proud to say that he's one of Winchester's seniors and was prominently in the discussion about why we needed the 2.5 override.
Let's break away again and see how Alan's doing at Town Hall. Alan, what's going on?
Well, I'm actually not too much activity here right now. Sandy's downstairs checking to see if there are any results in, and of course I'm sitting here listening, hanging on both of your every word. Interesting comment, Alan, listening to you talk about the campaigns for the override. My personal observation was that I saw the pro-override people this year putting a particular emphasis on the fact that the seniors would qualify for tax breaks, or not necessarily seniors, I misspoke there, that anyone who was in a hardship situation could qualify for a tax break. And I think maybe you haven't seen that emphasis in the past, that if you were alarmed at your tax rate going up, that there was possibilities that you could go down to town hall and in a very discreet way apply for tax deferments. Might be interesting. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that.
What we should say, Alan, is that for those seniors particularly, and you started out with seniors, and it is true, override or no override, that the seniors have an opportunity to go down under state law and town procedure to have their real estate taxes deferred or absorbed into the equity of the home. And then, of course, the difficulty would be that when they sold the home or transferred it to relatives, that would have to be paid off at that time. But anybody that's having difficulty with their property taxes at this time because of their fixed income status or inability to pay, those opportunities are available to them through state law and the town procedure.
It's interesting that you haven't seen, or at least I don't recall seeing the emphasis on those tax breaks in past campaigns for overrides.
Well, I think that's probably true. There probably should be more attention to this for those, even regardless of the override question, who might want to have access to this kind of a circumstance and be able to stay where they are. I mean, this is a long standing situation that says to seniors, you've been in your home, we want you to stay there, we don't want you to have to sell your home because you're not able to pay the property tax. That's a very
Exactly. Well, we'll see shortly what the results of that campaign. There seemed to be a very well-run, well-organized campaign. Again, seemingly more organized and focused than I've seen for the past campaigns for overrides.
I think that's true. We'll see how we'll see what the
All right,
effect is.
guys, we're standing by here waiting for those results to come in. We'll bring them to you as fast as we can.
Well, thank you, Alan. Let me just take a moment to remind our viewers that you are watching live coverage on Media One, Channel 3, Winchester's election. And I also want to take a moment to thank one of our sponsors for this evening, Bella Cucina on Washington Street in Winchester. They were kind enough to feed all of our crew, and as a veteran member of the election crew, I'm sure you understand, Alan, how important that is. So
Not only that, I've stopped many times at Bella Cucina on my way home, as my wife has as well, and we've enjoyed their cuisine.
it is excellent. So let me just take this commercial moment to say thank you to the folks at Bella Cucina and to remind you, stop by and give them a try.
Great.
Okay, let's talk some more politics. We've been talking about the question 2.5 override.
It's going to be very interesting what happens tonight. We talked about the importance of this particular issue. Let me say that the momentum on the 2.5 overrides is in favor of those proponents at this time, given the last two votes. You've
done some research on the trend in the past of the 2.5 override. Why don't you give us some of that data?
Well, we've actually followed them over the years. The first override for us was in 1988, and that was in a fall election, so there was a very big turnout. 87% of the voters came out to vote for other issues as well, but the 2.5 override failed in 88, 89, and 90, really by an average of almost 60 to 40. So that was an issue as we looked at I put them out here so we could keep track and look at what happened in the fall of 88 and the spring of 89 and 90. We looked at how to have monies put aside for the library in 88 and then for the public safety building and the town hall in 89 and 90. And trying in different ways, the town said no loud and clear, that they didn't want to do that. And so the town meeting put together 5 different questions in 91 to say, let's talk about if we added money to the budget in the health department, in the library, in the schools, would you like to do that? And the community said no in each of them for different reasons and in different numbers. But it was obvious at that time that certain precincts were more leaning in favor than not.
So you saw a change in the voting pattern.
It became very, very clear that the formula to override 2.5, very simple to state but tough to do, you need to win in precincts 3, 4, and 7, kind of the center of town out towards the Medford side. But 3, 4, and 7, you have to win by 60 to 40. And you have to only lose in 1, 2, 6, and 8, which historically tougher on this issue. You have to lose by no more than 60-40, and you've got to break even in precinct 5. That's what you have to do. And that's what happened last time. In 96, there was a softening on the issue when we talked about a debt exclusion in 96 for $30 million for the schools. There was a softening in the precincts that were negative, and there was a very big debate on the Lincoln School issue again. And the precinct 3, which is what I would call the precinct 3, Lincoln School precinct, was not as much in favor of that override as they had been of others. And I think that was one of the difficulties in the discussion. It turned out in 98, when we came back to this, precinct 3 returned to form and was quite strong in favor. And when you look at precincts 3, 4, and 7, 4 being the Mystic School precinct, and they came on very strong in 96 and stronger even in 98. But those precincts voted in favor of the override 63 to 37. So that part of the formula worked. And then 1, 2, 6, and 8 voted no, but they only voted no by 53%, 57%, I think, yeah, beat it by 3%, 57% no, rather than the 60 plus. And so that left it up to precinct 5, and they voted in favor. They usually 60 to 40 no in other issues, but they voted in favor of this one.
So
it was about a 3% swing.
Tonight you think it'll pass?
I would say the momentum is there for it. Very, very difficult to tell. Yeah, I think that the reason that you always look at the turnout and you say, well, if there's a big turnout, people in favor would say that'll help us. Not necessarily so, because it depends on the precincts. Again, I would expect that this will see, because of the campaign, very strong support from the precincts I just talked about that would be favorable. If the turnout is not very large in precinct 1 and 2, and 8 maybe, and possibly 6, then that would be an advantage for the proponents. Certainly the momentum, when we look at the votes in the last 2 times on 2.5 override, is with the proponents. And I think this campaign has been put together in a way that would cause people to want to vote for the override because of the affordability issue. But it's hard to say. I must say I was surprised it passed in '98, so we'll see.
Well, with that thought, let's pause for a moment, and we'll take a break, so do stay with us. We'll be right back here on Media One with election results. Stay with us.
After my dad made it clear that biology was more important than baseball, I made my decision. And was starting to think running away wasn't such a great idea after all. Then I saw him. Whistle Stop Willie. Rumor had it he was born in a boxcar and spent most of his life crossing the country on trains. So I asked him if he were my age again and could go any place, where he'd most like to go.
To school.
His answer sent me in a different direction, and is one of the main reasons I'm graduating today. Thank you.
Learning. It's the smart thing to do. A message from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Technology. It's made the other side of the world seem closer than the other side of town. But you don't live on the other side of the world. You live here. And that's why Media One's been connecting houses to our interactive broadband network here. And here. And here. Because you want to be a part of that PTA meeting without leaving the kids. You want to find out how your local team is doing. Whoa! You want to know what traffic's like. Or maybe you just want to avoid traffic altogether by getting just as much done from home. At Media One, we believe our interactive broadband network is the way that you'll do it. Nice shoes. Media One. This is broadband. This is the way.
Welcome back to Media One's live coverage of Winchester's election. I'm Jennifer Babine, along with Alan McDonald, talking about the issues and bringing you the numbers as quickly as we can. In fact, some of the numbers are coming in now. We'll have them up for you in graphic form in just a moment. But just before we do that, welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
We were talking about the Prop 2.5 override before we went to break. Let's talk about some of the facts. There's a lot of background information. There's a lot of information. And in fact, I think for the average voter, it can get a little confusing.
Of course it can.
It can. So let's break it down a little bit. We're talking about a 2.5 override with monies that are supposedly going to renovations of schools, in particular the Lincoln School. And we're also talking about major repairs. We're talking about repairs that, if they are not done, it doesn't sound like the school is inhabitable. Would you say that's fair?
Oh, I think that's fair. I think if you looked at a 10-year time frame, that might even be too long to look ahead. There's no question that we're already having difficulties with some of the just normal issues of building maintenance. So the issue arose really 2 years back, or almost 3, when we started the discussion about how we would handle the Lincoln School subject, whether we would use that as a magnet for other repairs to put students in while we repaired other schools, or whether we would make Lincoln a continuing strong elementary school as part of the system. The decision was made over time to continue to have Lincoln School as a central part of our elementary school system, but in order to do that, it needs to be brought up to standard. If we're not able to bring it up to standard, we certainly won't be able to use it as a center for holding other students temporarily or on a longer-term basis.
So this Prop 2.5 override is crucial.
Well, it is crucial. Again, as I said earlier, those who are not in favor of the override feel that we can do the necessary repairs in the normal budgetary process. But we're talking about a substantial amount of money. This is a $13 million override question on the ballot now. We're not able to put the money immediately up for the schools, the school repairs that the Education Facilities Planning and Building Committee see as necessary, and they spent a lot of time looking into it, much more time than I have individually, that's for sure. So I know their point of view is that we need to do this right now in order to come up to standards for our students.
Now, people are always interested in knowing, what does this mean for me? So for the average taxpayer, what kind of money are we talking about?
Well, the figures have been there for the increase, and to tell you the truth, Jennifer, I've read all the material on it, and I'm stumbling now to think of exactly what the numbers are that it would mean in the tax rate, but I'm not positive. I don't know if you've got some things there. I don't want to mislead the voters. I can estimate, but I don't want to mislead them.
Well, I don't want to mislead anybody either, but I believe that I read that for the average home, it's between just over $5 and $129, or an average of about $72 a year, with that amount going up as the years advance, going up slightly. So it doesn't sound like we're talking about a lot of money.
Well, in relation to other things that we're doing in the community as well, it's not a lot of money. In relation to the amount of the average tax bill, it's not a lot of money. But certainly for those people on a fixed income, any amount of money is a question. There has been a discussion about the deductibility, of course, of the local tax payments off of the federal taxes for those who have that opportunity to do it. But of course, not everybody does use that method to pay their taxes. So it's not one system is good for all here. People will be in different circumstances, so that's the concern. And I just would hate to throw a number out that's not certified. I know that there has been a better look at it, and I don't want to mislead, as I say, people as to what it would be. But in relative terms, yes, it's not a staggering amount. I think those who are reluctant to support it feel that it's just one more thing, and that there'll be another and another. Those who are in favor of it see this as the most affordable way to go if we are going to bring our schools up to standard.
I think also when you have a community like Winchester, where every year they're trying to get a Prop 2.5 override accomplished, and yet it seems like perhaps things get done every year without the 2.5 override, that someone that doesn't want the taxes to go up might be saying, you know, we've survived in the past without it, and we can do it again. What do you think of that?
Well, certainly that's probably been one of the things that's kept the override from getting more positive attention the last few times until '98. We had an override question about the public safety building. It didn't pass, and we did a public safety building redo. We had it at the town hall, and we wound up doing the town hall. We had a question about the library. We wound up with a lot of private support for the library to get the library done. So I think that people did have a feeling that, oh, well, if we don't pass this,
It'll get done
happen.
Anyway.
But I must say, going to town meeting now, year in, year out, that at a certain point, it's obvious that the budget cannot accept more borrowing or cannot accept more capital expenditures without some serious changes in the way we do the budget. So I think that's what's happened over a long period of time. 20 years to 2.5, but it was 1988 when we started discussing this. So over a decade's time, we've pretty much done all of the magic we could do, I think, in terms of finding large amounts of capital through bonding or through diversion of other monies, that kind of thing. So now we're down to really testing whether or not we're going to reach for that override situation. And what the state has done to make it easier for communities, not just Winchester, but all communities, is to say on the school issues, those that really have been pushed out, we're willing to put up a lot of money to pay you back or pay a big percentage of what you're going to do to fix up your local schools. That's what's made this particular override question, an important one for the affordability side.
We have Alan Iden standing by live at Winchester Town Hall. Let's check in with Alan. How are things shaping up now?
All right, Jennifer and Alan, first results are in. We have results in from precincts 7 and 8. Carry some surprises for us in our contested races. In precinct 7, again, precincts 7 and 8 are the voting precincts at Lynch School, north side of town. We have Glenn Jacobs with 48 votes in precinct 7, Robert Steves with 197, and Elizabeth Kreger with 418. Now in precinct 8, those totals respectively were 71, 155, and 193. So that gives totals for the two precincts for Glenn Jacobs at 119, second place Robert Steves at 352, and first place Elizabeth Kreger. On the other question, the question on the ballot, the override question, in precinct 7, we have a total of 435 yeses to 318 noes. However, in precinct 8, we see a reversal where we see 142 yeses to 337 noes. Total on those two precincts of 577 yes, 655 no. We're getting other results coming in very quickly, so if you want to come back to us in just a couple of minutes, we'll be able to give you probably precincts 5 and 6. But as we have it right now, in these two precincts, precincts 7 and 8, the override question is defeated in these two precincts, and the selectman, in the selectman's race, Elizabeth Kreger is well ahead of the other two candidates. Back to you.
Thanks, Alan. We'll check back in for some more numbers shortly. Thanks for having them so quick. So the override vote so far not getting passed, although by a short margin.
Well, it's very close. It's a close race.
Close
What
race?
it is. That's right. It's normal, typical for, if you look at the last four precincts, 5, 6, 7, 8, to not have it ahead. Historically, it's precinct 3 that's the most favorable for 2.5, and precinct 4 second place for that. So you haven't heard from 3 and 4 yet. And my guess is that, given the numbers that come in so far, that they will be in favor. And the question will be what the turnout in 1 and 2 would be, because they would be likely not in favor.
Now, Alan gave us the numbers for precincts 7 and 8, and in fact, we have some more numbers to report. We have precincts 5 and 6, as well as 7 and 8, to bring up on the graphics machine.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have those numbers for you in just a moment.
Okay.
But taking a look at those numbers, we have printouts. I'm not going to read them all for you just yet, but it looks like Elizabeth Kreger is lengthening her lead for the selectman's seat. And in fact, the override vote is not passing yet. But of course, we do not have precincts 1 through 4 reporting in yet, and anything can happen. Here we go. Here are the numbers. Glenn Jacobs has 10% of the vote. Robert Steves has 35%, and Elizabeth Kreger has 55%. We have half of the precincts just reporting in now. It's about 20 to 9, so it is still early. We have half the precincts yet to count.
Well, Rod Steve's home precinct isn't in there, number 1, and Betsy Kreger's home precinct is either number 2, so precinct 2. So that's certainly an impressive number for Betsy Kreger so far. There's no question about that.
She's really taken a strong lead early.
Yeah, no question. And that, as we said earlier, if Rob Steves could stay with her outside of 1 and 2, that could make it a good race. But certainly her circumstances in those precincts were a lot stronger, and that shows in the vote.
Let's talk about the candidates. We have 3 candidates for 1 open slot. The incumbent is not running.
Right.
What?
Incumbent, Jerry, we should mention
Jerry
Mr.
Pocari,
Yeah, Gerard
7-year member of the selectmen, not running for another term. Why?
Well, I think a young family, and 7 years is a good stint. He's done a lot of work. The hours seem to pile up, and he's a busy guy at work, too. I think he's taking a deep breath, and I'm sure he'll be involved in town affairs for quite some time. But I think that's a normal thing. It used to be once upon a time people didn't run for re-election. They only ran 1 term, but that sort of changed at the end of the 60s into the early 70s.
And you certainly can speak from personal experience as to what being on the board for a number of years can take out of you, the amount of hours every week that you need to put into the commitment?
Well, it's a great pleasure, there's no question about it, but it is a commitment, and it does take a lot of attention to do it well, and Jerry Polcari has taken that attention and has done it well. So, at a certain point, there are other things you have to spend as much time on, especially at his age with a young family, but I don't think for a minute that's going to mean he's going to be away from town affairs totally.
All three of the candidates have political experience behind them, local political experience in Winchester. Elizabeth Kruger has 6 years on the Finance Committee, 2 years on the Capital Planning Committee, so she obviously would be well suited for the position. What are some of your thoughts on her?
Well, I think for both Betsy Krager and Rob Steves, they're into planning, they're into management practices quite a bit. Not that Glenn Jacobs is not, he's more in the consultant and technology field of things, but he hasn't had as many years of experience as both Betsy Krager and Rob Steves have had. Rob's an attorney, Betsy's a CPA, they're both very professional and look at the long term, and it's shown in the Finance Committee, and it's shown for Rob Steves in the Education, Facilities, Planning and Building, and it's shown for Betsy in the capital planning as well as the finance. So I think in Betsy's case, she would bring a very strong, long-term point of view to the finances of the community, and actually that's what her campaign has been about. It's been looking at the various areas of sewage control, of facilities renovation, of looking at the longer-term plan. She at the Finance Committee talked about not spending enough on maintaining assets that we already have, and I'm sure that's going to be part of her focus at the selectmen's level.
We have some more numbers to report. So if we can bring those numbers up on the graphics machine, we have here the override question. All 8 precincts now reporting in. The override question passes by 51%. 51 to 49%. It passes.
Well, it's quite a story, and we could see it was going to be a close vote from the early report that Alan Iden gave us, but even though that it was behind by a couple of hundred votes on the early report, that was to be expected from the precincts he gave us. I haven't seen the numbers for 3 and 4, but they've obviously got to be pretty strong, and I'm getting a little look right now, and certainly that's the case. Precinct 4, the last 3 times out, has been strongly in favor. They were not in favor until 96 of any of these, and they've been very strong since, because it has been such an important piece for the schools. Mystic School and the whole education process in Precinct 4 particularly has been a matter of discussion for many, many years, since we did once upon a time have to close the Mystic School and have the discussion and have those kids go to Lincoln. But
Well, you can't get any closer than this. 51% to 49%.
That's very
The
close.
override passes for the second time.
Yep.
In Winchester, I'll say recent history. Extended history.
Extended history, right, extended history.
Extended history. Okay, we also have some numbers for the selectmen's race. Let's take a look at some of those numbers, see how that race is shaping up. We'll have those numbers for you in just a moment. But it looks to me like all 8 precincts have, in fact, reported in for the selectmen's race, and I dare say we can predict a winner at this point, and it's going to be Elizabeth Krager.
That makes sense from the early reports, frankly, and I'm looking now at how that went, and Betsy Krager actually was the winner here in all of the 8 precincts, if I look quickly, and so she swept the 8 precincts, and as we said at the start, certainly her work has gone on for the last, during this decade, since 93 at town meeting, and since before that in the school activities with the kids, and all the way through finance and capital planning. She has done a job that has earned her the votes, and she's obviously impressed the folks with her campaign.
She has gotten herself 56% of the vote today, which puts her in first place. She will be Winchester's newest elected selectman. Robert Steves has 34%, and Mr. Jacobs has 9%. Mr. Jacobs is a young candidate. He is a young politician with, I'm sure, a very nice career in local politics ahead of him. He's a former town meeting member. But just Elizabeth Krager pulled out the votes today, and she is the newest member to be selectman. And in fact, I think we have all those graphics to share with you now, all of the numbers from our 8 precincts reporting in. And here we go. You can see the numbers here. Mr. Jacobs with 9%. Robert Steves at 34%, and Elizabeth Krager with 56% of the vote. That is all of our precincts reporting in. And those are the final numbers. Elizabeth Krager, the newest member to Winchester's Board of Selectmen. No surprises.
No, I'd say that's not a surprise, and we, early on, don't like to predict exactly this or that, because everybody campaigns so hard. You know that they're all deserving of some positive attention, and I'd have to say that, as we did say at the time, that if there was a momentum to this, or if there's somebody to catch, it was Betsy Krager, and she did well, and I think she has earned it by the hard work. And that's not to say that Rod Steves didn't work as hard in the campaign activities particularly, but in terms of as many years on the job for town activities, I think Betsy clearly made the point during the campaign that she's ready for the Board of Selectmen.
Campaigning for local office is a hard job. It's a very difficult job. From your experience, what makes a winning campaign?
Well, a team. What makes a winning campaign is having a lot of people who want the candidate to succeed. A candidate cannot do it by herself or himself. There's no question about it. It takes somebody who excites the team and the community to go forward, have a positive attitude about what the seat is going to mean to the town itself. So that what the winning campaign is having a lot of people want you to win. There's not a lot of people who want you to win, and you got to step back and wait for another time, and then go support a candidate that does have that.
We have Alan Idem standing by live at Winchester Town Hall. Hello.
Jennifer Nalen, joining me is Robert Steves here, candidate for selectman. Made a pretty impressive showing for this for a first shot at the board, and how do you feel about the campaign?
Well, I first would like to thank my family, my wife Sandra, and my son Robbie. I think they're watching this. We just recently installed cable for the first 5 years of our residence. We didn't have cable, and now we do, and I'm sure they're watching me, and I'd like to say hello. And I would like to, at this point, congratulate Betsy Krager. Betsy and I have served on the Finance Committee for the past 2 years, and I congratulate her. She is very competent, and I'm very confident that she will do a fine job as a member of the Board of Selectmen. Obviously, I'm a little disappointed not winning, but I do appreciate all of the individuals that have supported me. There have been a number of individuals that have really stood up and helped me, and I wouldn't have been able to get this far without them. And many of them are at my house right now, and I'd like to extend a warm thanks and gratitude for everything you've done. And hopefully this could turn out to be positive in many ways.
I know you ran a high visibility campaign. We saw your lots of postcards, lots of high visibility car toppers. Any surprises in your first run for selectman's office?
Well, when I first started, one of the problems that I had was name recognition, and so I decided to go door to door. And at first, my goal was to introduce myself to the neighborhoods and talk to the voters. And surprisingly, what I found out by doing that is I learned a lot about the neighborhoods, and it was actually a great experience. Many individuals that I may not have met, I had the opportunity to talk to them about many of the issues, and I really enjoyed that, and that's something that will always be with me. And hopefully, if I do decide to run at some future date, that I will use that as a positive experience, and I will continue to reach out to the neighborhoods, because I think there are many individuals in this community that do not have the opportunity to have a voice in our government, and I was hoping to broaden the scope, and if I was elected, I would have reached out to the neighborhoods.
Do you think the experience of campaigning is going to bring some change to any of your feelings that you bring to the Finance Committee?
Well, I think it brings a different perspective. Unfortunately, this town is no different than many others. There is a small group of individuals, and I'm one of those individuals, that participate on a volunteer basis. And sometimes you get an insulated viewpoint of many of the issues. And what this race has taught me is that we have to broaden our scope, and we have to reach out. Some individuals, for many reasons, can't attend our meetings, and I think we have to, first of all, publicize what we're doing in a better way, and we also have to reach out to the concerned citizens and bring our message to them, because there are a lot of individuals that don't have the opportunity really to learn about the issues, and there's misinformation out there, and that creates, an uncomfortable and sometimes an unfair situation where people sometimes view issues the wrong way based upon misinformation.
I know one last question on the override question. Any surprises? Were you surprised it passed? Were you surprised by the margin?
I was surprised by the margin. I felt confident that it would pass. I thought it had merit. We have to rebuild our schools. One of the platforms and one of the issues that I tried to bring out to the voters was that we need to renovate our schools. Our schools are in serious need of repair. I'm a member of the Education Facilities Planning Building Committee, which I will now retain since I didn't win this election, and I will continue to work to rebuilding our schools, and we have to put them on a cycle, and I believe every 2 years we need to renovate a new school. Hopefully, if the Board of Selectmen could review the finances, we could avoid seeking future overrides, but I believe that the schools are very important. We need to continue to repair and rebuild and renovate them.
Rob, I know you've been very patient in waiting here this evening to join us, and I know you have a lot of your supporters and family waiting for you at home, so I want to thank you for coming by and sharing some thoughts with us, and congratulate you on a well-run race.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you gave me this opportunity to voice my opinions, and I extend a warm thanks to you and all the members of Media One. Thank you.
My pleasure, my pleasure. All right, back to you in the studio, Jennifer and Alan.
Thank you. I'm glad to see that Mr. Steves finally got some cable.
I think that's a little plug for Media One.
Sure, we'll take it.
Betsy's gonna be able to say, I was able to watch those selectmen's meetings, and, you gotta have Media One to do that.
Which is wonderful, and actually, I want to take a minute to recap all of the numbers and talk to our viewers again about the percentages and the winners. But before we do, speaking of plugs, I'm going to plug one of our sponsors, Bella Cucina, for sponsoring us this evening and for feeding our crew, which is a very important job. They are at 358 Washington Street, right here in Winchester. Their phone number 729-0388, and they have great food. So it's not a difficult plug to make, so we want to thank them. Let's, before we say goodbye to our viewers, recap all of the numbers. Let's take another look at the numbers for this evening. We followed two races, the Selectmen's race, the numbers right here on your screen. Glenn Jacobs with 9% of the vote. Robert Steves, who we just heard from and was very gracious, with 34% of the vote. I'm sure this is not the last we've heard from Mr. Steves. He is very involved in local politics and will continue to do so. He said so.
Oh, yeah, I think he'll be quite
ago.
visible on the Finance Committee and the Education Facilities Group, and we'll see what comes from that thereafter.
Absolutely. And our winner this evening, Elizabeth Krager, with 56% of the vote, becomes the newest member to the Board of Selectmen.
It's pretty impressive, 56% in a three-way race is
She's
is
got to be
a very big
pleased with
number,
it
right?
tonight.
That's
She's got to
a big
be
number.
pleased. The other big race tonight, the question, the override question. Let's take a look at the final numbers for that race. And the question passes with 51% of the vote. All 8 precincts have reported in. These are final totals. It's just before 9 o'clock, and so we promised you the numbers as early as we could provide them, and we are fulfilling our promise. The override question does pass with 51% of the vote. And as we've said, we are not surprised that it passed, and we are not surprised that it passed by a narrow margin.
Right, no, I think that's right. I think, as we said earlier in the night, the momentum for the 2.5 override was there, given the 96 and 98 votes, but it would have to be close, and it certainly was. And the formula is held on the precincts 3, 4, and 7, having to carry the load on that, and they did carry the load in terms of turnout, plus yes vote, and it's close enough that I think that even the winning side will have sympathy to those who were not in favor, and we're going to do everything, I'm sure, at town meeting to have a tight budget and to not take advantage of the fact that there is an override.
Let's mention town meeting. I'm glad you brought it up. It's April 26th. We want to make sure that our viewers are aware that it's right around the corner.
That's exactly right. That's the last Monday in April, and we'll have non-finance matters coming up that week, and we'll get into the budget process the first week in May, but there'll be a number of issues that are of interest to the town that they want to watch in a town meeting on that last Monday of April. Yeah.
And there are 47 warrant articles.
Yes, there are.
So it
And,
could prove to be
all kinds of things.
a lengthy town meeting, but
Yeah.
an important one nonetheless.
so.
Let's quickly, in a moment, go back to Town Hall and say good night to our political reporter, Alan Iden,
Great.
in just a moment. Actually, he's standing by, so let's
right. Hi, guys. Sandy Rogers is joining me here in the Selectman's office. We do have the results of the town meeting races, and I'll go right into precinct 1 and 2. Successful candidates in precinct 1 were Peter White, Linda Camlin, Robert Steves, Kathleen Montgomery, Neil Splain, Geraldine Heinold, David Storygard, Robert McIntosh, and that's it, the 8 candidates. In precinct 2, Lawrence Hutchings, Edward Baker, Elizabeth Kreger, of course, our new selectman, David Judelson, Joanne Reese, Roseanne Gallery, Teresa Baldacci, and Robert Souza are elected in precinct 1 and precinct 2. Precinct 3, Sandy.
Precinct 3. The winners there are going to be Cynthia Sweetser, Charles Sekaris, James Mangan, John Montgomery, Joan O'Connor, Patrick Fortin, John Shawcross, Paul Kelly. And precinct 4, there was no competition. All the people who were on the ballot are now elected.
Let's read their names.
All right.
Just so everybody knows who their town meeting members are.
From precinct 4, Nancy Clark, Marjorie Moore, Marianne McCall Taylor, Leslie French, Eli Bortman, Alice Senko, a newcomer, Jean Sheridan, and John Sullivan. All the rest were incumbents.
All right. And moving on to precinct 5. We had all incumbents re-elected. Edward O'Connell, Louise O'Donnell, Roger Bauman, Elaine Kuttner, Linda Pickering, Sandra Rogers. Why do I recognize that name? Stephen Parkhurst, I knew that was familiar, and Harriet Nason in precinct 5. Congratulations, Sandy.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Moving on to precinct 6, we had incumbent Stephen Powers, Emmanuel D'Ambrosio, William McKay, Robert Johnson, Constance McCool, and Lisa Marie Myler. Incumbents were re-elected, and newcomers Cynthia Latta and William Miller were also elected to town meeting in precinct 6.
And precinct 7, we have Roger Berman, Robert Cashin, Darrell Smith, Michael Elephant, Robert Beatty, Karen Anderson, Stephen Lynch, and William Swanton. And in precinct 7, precinct 7, the write-in, there was no write-in on this sheet, and I believe that precinct 8, there was no contest, and I'll read the names if you'd like me to. Precinct 8, no contest with these people, but the names are William Thomas, Alice Lepore, Charles Nuremberger, Susan Brockhow, Margaret Walsh, Mary Kay McIntyre, William Duran, and as I say, those are the town meeting members for this election.
For precinct 8. And we may just want to recap that we have quite a few new town meeting members. Linda Camlin, Peter White, Neil Splain, all newcomers. David Judelson, Joanne Reese, Teresa Baldacci, Robert Souza. Let's see, Cynthia Latta, William Miller.
Cynthia Latta is the chairman of the Senate.
She is, okay. Good, I knew that. But she's a newcomer to town meeting.
Right.
All right. Anyway, lots of newcomers to town meeting. Susan Brokaw in precinct 8. Mary Kay McIntyre in precinct 8 is a newcomer. Robert Cashion, Darrell Smith, and William Swanton, all newcomers, and they're going to be initiated into a very interesting town meeting.
That's right.
Very active town meeting coming up towards the end of April. So that's the results here from Town Hall, and it's been a pleasure to have you here with me, Sandy.
Thank you, Alan.
Get you back on the camera. All right, back to you guys in the studio.
We're actually going to take this opportunity to say good night. We have all the numbers wrapped up, so thank you both very much for joining us tonight and for providing us with interviews and the numbers. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And with that, we're done.
Well, it was a great pleasure to be with you, Jennifer.
It was a lot of
Thank
fun
you so
for me, too. A lot of issues to talk about. Thank you very much for joining me on the anchor desk. Before we go, I'm going to give one more plug to our sponsor, Bella Cucina on Washington Street. We did promise them 3 plugs, and they provided food for our crew tonight, and it's 9 o'clock, so we would have had a very hungry crew had they not done so. So thank you very much, Bella Cucina, and the food was delicious.
Great.
So with that, let me say once again thank you to you.
It was great to be here, Jennifer. Thank you for having me here.
It was terrific, and I want to thank you for joining us at home. Once again, you're watching Media One, C2V.